Flow is funny. It's a really funny thing. And today, in today's Haizhen log, I'm going to be just reflecting on what it means to be in flow and how sometimes it's easy to miss the flow of the universe. So my name is John, I'm the Haizhen Resonance, and I'm a personal transformation facilitator. And today what I'm looking at is considering the idea of flow in my life. Number one, what that feels like. And then number two, just to recognize that it's something that's always moving through. I think one of the things that stops me when I'm in flow, or something that takes me out of flow, is this overthinking. There's like this sense of sometimes thinking too much about a thing or feeling like I need to have more information about this thing. And rather than moving through and moving along with kind of the natural progression of all of the things that are happening in my life, sometimes I'll just pause and sit. Like, for example, before I started recording for today, I was sitting there almost in, I'd love to say quiet contemplation, but it was almost more like a internal storm that I was kind of caught in the center of, and I didn't see what was outside of it. When I get into those modes of overthinking, I could sit there for hours and hours on end, just rolling through all of the different thoughts. Specifically in this case, I'm thinking about what are the different messages that I want to share with you in terms of in this format. And even it takes me down all sorts of different rabbit holes. For example, if I'm thinking about content, it's like, what am I talking about in this series? This series was initially intended to be reflections of this journey over 90 days, over a 90-day period. And I've done off-the-cuff reflections, almost like stream of consciousness, and much of my style is very much like that. And because I end up in that space, it's easy to move from one thought to another to another. And in some ways, the flow can be observed in thoughts, and also the stopping of thoughts can be seen as well, because there are ideas where I think that I have this message that I want to share, and then I don't know the words to say to put it out there. So then if I'm overthinking, it's one of those things that falls into the category of doing too much. Because if I'm thinking about doing things and just rehashing and just going over what I need to do next, I'm not actually in the process of doing things. It's actually interesting too that when the flow stops, so I had some momentum coming into this whole series. I went almost about 50 days concurrently without stopping. And then I stopped for some rest, and I found that that was a good space to pause. And then in that space, there was time to think. And in addition to just getting rest from creating content like this, I found that I was starting to overthink the things that I was creating. And then starting to really overanalyze what I was putting out there. And because of that, the flow kind of stops in a sense. It's not that it stops completely, because the world doesn't stop turning if you stop or you think that you stop. What happens is life just keeps on moving, and it just moves in different directions. So when I was in that pause and I wasn't focused on creating these videos, in some of that time I started to get new ideas and different ways of pivoting different services. One thing that I've been working on recently is to get in front of more people with what I call a focus session. Initially, that's where it started. And the focus session initially just kind of grew into this unwieldy thing for what I wanted to create. And the intention was to work on a specific limiting pattern that an individual would have and dissolve it through the use of hypnosis, and then install an empowered state, something where you can build self-trust in your own process so that you can take that aligned action. When I got into looking at that a little bit more, there was an element of human design mixed in there, and I started to think that it was too broad. It would be too much to fit kind of those two things together. However, I understand that both of those pieces work really well together. So where I flowed was to take that initial idea, and rather than hold on to it and keep it the same and just continue on with it, I looked at it and it seemed to make sense to kind of split it apart. And I really love the idea of having a container of time to work with an individual to create that personal transformation, that deep transformation. So the focus session has become a focus container, a container of time over 3 months or 90 days, where I'll work with you first to start dissolving a limiting pattern, and then providing you with a flow reading. That reading so that you can understand your ideal flow of energy, so that you can move efficiently. You can move in ways where you feel like you're making progress and it's not a struggle and it's not encumbered. Or to say it another way, it's unencumbered. So what actually happens and what results is actually that action piece. So I've spent all of this time creating that product, outlining it, and then also to think about being more intentional in the work that I'm doing here. And that took a little bit of time, because every day that passed and I wanted to take kind of more of a break because I had stopped that flow. And it's a funny thing, because I know that this time keeps on going. Because I had created content and uploaded videos ahead of time, it's almost like the flow is continuing with or without my input at this point. And eventually it could potentially stop, and that would be my decision whether or not I wanted to stop. So being in a position sometimes of like spending too much time out of flow, which is to say spending too much time in overthinking, really is not a fun place to be, because I would end up spinning my thoughts and still ending up in the same place. So what is working for me is just to do something, take an action, rather than just sit and ponder. So now I'm taking this action of creating this video of considering how flow is funny. It's funny because life moves on whether you believe it to or not. Whether you feel and tell yourself the story that you are static, that you're not changing, that nothing is changed, it's actually an untruth. Even if I think back over the last 5 days, I'd taken a break from creating this content. And in those 5 days, is it that I stayed in a static state? Well, no, I consumed more content. I spent time looking and researching and considering how to make these videos more engaging. I actually started trying out a new video editing software. And that process was a little bit frustrating because it was new and it was a different type of editor. I was using Descript and I've been using CapCut in the past. And that's very similar to, like, say, Final Cut, where it's like a timeline editor. You're editing based on the videos and clips that you see. And stepping into this like new way of editing, where you're editing through transcript, was actually a little bit odd and frustrating because it was different. So that kind of stopped me up for a little bit of time, and I started to think about what more I could actually do for these videos. And that's where a little bit of the like push to do something, to be seen, to have someone, to create a product that is a little bit more polished kind of came in. And that just put me in a space of stopping and not creating as much. So now I'm back in a mode of creating because I just feel like I need to do something to move forward. Every one of these that I do is a step forward towards something better, hopefully. So I'm just wondering, for you, what has surprised you? What has surprised you about how your life is unfolding? Is it unfolding the way that you want? I know that maybe 5 years ago, I don't know that I would have thought to be in this exact position. And that's just kind of how the universe moves. So thank you for your attention. Consider that, and let's keep on moving. Thanks for your cooperation.